Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the Florida City and County Management Association webinar entitled More Pressure, More Problems, the Increasing Challenges of Building Departments and Permitting. My name is Bob Lee and I have the honor of serving as your host today. Joining me as co-host is Dr. Dina Hurst and Mr. Mike Brico. Both Dina and Mike work with the John Scott Daly Florida Institute of Government and will be the people who will be assisting both our panelists as well as attendees today with any technical issues you may have. Sponsors for today's program include the Florida League of Cities, the John Scott Daly Florida Institute of Government, the Center for Florida Local Government Excellence, and of course, FCCMA, corporate sponsors, Government Services Group, Strategic Government Resources, and Granicus. Today's program, before I introduce the moderator that we have today, and that's going to be Catherine Matos, let me just share with you all that we do have a lot of attendees registered today. As a result, if you want to communicate with our panelists or submit a question, we're going to ask you to use the chat box, as all attendees will be muted. There's a number of questions that are going to be posed to our distinguished panelists, and with an hour, time is going to be our rarest commodity. So if you have any questions, please use that chat box. So at this time, let's get right into the program. I want to introduce Catherine Matos. Catherine is the Assistant City Manager in the City of Boynton Beach. She has the pleasure of working with Lori Lavaliere, who is the City Manager there and also the President-elect of FCCMA. I mention that because I want to give a shout out. Lori has been very, very helpful in promoting professional development in the state for managers all over Florida. So appreciate her efforts. And Catherine, appreciate you agreeing to serve as a moderator today. Catherine, if you would, please introduce yourself a bit about a little bit of your background to the attendees, and also then introduce your panelists and proceed with the program.
Thank you. As Bob mentioned, my name is Catherine Matos. I have been serving as the Assistant City Manager in the City of Boynton Beach for almost 2 years. So right around the time the pandemic started taking over our operations, I started in Boynton Beach. Prior to that, I was working in the City Manager's office in the City of Sunny Isles Beach for 7 years. So my experience is primarily in South Florida, and during that time, I have become increasingly concerned about the future of the permitting process and building code throughout the state. I think that it's no surprise to any of us. We're all dealing with this on the front lines, but some of the big issues that we're facing are budget constraints, the state legislature's consistent attempt to chip away at the Florida building code and pass unfunded mandates for our building departments. And then the big issue of we're having field experts retire out at increasingly larger rates. And there's not a new crop of credentialed professionals coming up through the ranks. So you couple that with the competition from the private sector, and we've got some big pressure on our building departments and on our building permitting processes. So I'm really, really excited to introduce the panel that I have on board today. They are a team of field experts from around the state. A couple of them have been presidents of the Building Officials Association of Florida, and so we really have some top level expertise on our panel. I'm going to have them self-introduce, and I will start with Tom.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Allen. I'm the building official of Lake County, Florida. I've been doing this for 26 years. Doing the building side, and over 20 years doing the fire prevention side. So past president of OAF, and looking forward to getting these discussions going and continuing with the great relationship between the city county managers and BOAF.
Thank you, Tom. Louis.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I am the assistant building official for the city of Fort Lauderdale, and I've been doing this for about 6 years now. I have been on the enforcement side since 2006, So before that, I was also in construction. For the most part, structural is my field of expertise, but I also do have fire credentials as well.
Thank you, Louis. John. I think you're muted, John.
Sorry about that. Okay. My name is John Kuntzman. I am our building official for the city of Boynton Beach. I've been in the regulation side for about 17 years, and 7.5 of that have been here in Boynton Beach. I have about 25, 30 years of experience in the trade, and I have seen a lot of things change on this side. So there's a lot of things that we need to prepare for.
Thank you, John. Clay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Clay Parker. I'm the building official for the city of Sunny Isles Beach. I have roughly 39 years of experience in the building department. I retired from the city of Fort Lauderdale in the tail end of 1999 and have been at Sunny Isles Beach for over 21 years now. I'm a past president of the BOAF and currently continue to be on the board as a technical advisor, and look forward to today.
Thank you, Clay. And last but not least, Brian Ruiz.
Well, perhaps least, good afternoon. My name is Brian Ruiz. I am the director of the City of Lakeland's Community and Economic Development Department. Unlike the rest of the panelists, I am neither a building official nor a building code administrator. I have spent the past 19 years with the City of Lakeland's Community and Economic Development Department in a host of services, including building inspection, primarily on the business side. And for the last 3 years, was assistant director of the department, and just about 5 weeks ago was appointed director.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, panel. With that, we have a loaded schedule for today, so I'm going to get started with our questions. The first question is, what do you see as the biggest challenge or opportunity for the permitting process within your city or county? And we'll start with Brian.
Thank you, Catherine. We had back before Thanksgiving in Lakeland a big customer forum, primarily for customers of our building inspection division, though it included lots of others, in particular homeowners, to hear from them firsthand about their experience and their expectations and their needs from our department, and again, specifically our building inspection division. And one of the things that I won't say we learned, but saw reinforced in that during that event was this disconnect really between our job balancing public safety and consumer protection to a degree, elements of the building code where plan review and inspection is concerned, with expectations from our customers for swift approval. So answers that maybe were acceptable in the past, like because it's in the code or because I said so, are no longer acceptable, not even remotely acceptable, where customers now expect and demand and deserve that we explain very thoroughly to them and convince them to a degree of the legislative intent, the impacts of the particular provisions, requirements that they're being asked or required to comply with, which makes our job, it takes longer and makes our job even tougher. So we are continually looking to simplify, shorten, really dig down and make instructions, infographics, a help desk on-demand service delivery model to help those customers that run the gamut in terms of skill level and need, but so that we can serve them all acceptably.
That's great, Brian. I think that we were seeing that across the board and all of the areas, all of the departments in local government, that the community is continually wanting more information and explanation of why we do the things that we do. And so that's a great approach to getting their input and presenting the information in a way that is accessible to them. John, what's your experience been in Boynton Beach?
All right. We, in 2020, when COVID came around, that really put us in dire straits when it came to permitting, online permitting. It was kind of a blessing in disguise. We were in the process of going online, but now we were forced to go online. And our IT department did an outstanding job getting softwares to work with each other. And now, because of that, the process of getting online permitting was expedited. And come Tuesday, we will be 100% online. And our goal, one of our goals, is going to be 100% paperless. So that's something that I'm really super trying to get in place, so we don't have to use paper anymore. Reduce our carbon footprint a little bit, and our permitting process is going to be all inclusive. Applications, fees, interview, inspections. So one of the challenges that we had, that we have overcome, is from COVID, is the ability to serve our customers more efficiently and properly.
I think we may have lost John. We can move on to Clay.
Yes. Well, we've gone through a lot of change in the last 2 or 3 years. The whole state has. Some of the changes that we've made in our building department, we had to tighten up security. We had to, I had to convert our permitting lobby to a bank style lobby with, bulletproof resistant windows, and that was it was a big help to the morale at the permit clerks that were behind the counter. We had a couple of threats that made us do that. COVID brought change to us. We had to more or less keep the permitting process going and shut down the building departments and work everything by appointment and everything by a tighter environment, change our methods of inspections in many cases, going to, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that a little bit, virtual inspections. But the state statutes gave us a lot of change in the last 2 years. So we have to really tighten up our permit fees and make sure we maintain, proper funding. And that's going to be another catalyst that's coming behind that. Is a big catalyst is the Surfside collapse. I think across, if the state passes statutes that will require, right now it's a problem in Dade and Broward County, but it's going to probably be a problem for the whole state of Florida. And we have to look at our departments. We have to look at our departments and expand our departments to, I've already talked to my city manager about expanding my department to include a existing buildings division that will just primarily concentrate on, existing buildings and maintenance and help coordinate with code enforcement a little bit better. But we're doing a lot of changes. And we're also happen to make some other technical changes. We're going to full electronic plan review this year also. But it's a lot of change coming up.
Hey, do you know have you selected a software yet that you'll be using for the electronic permit review?
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people that, a lot of the building officials in this room could give you some really good advice on that, Catherine. We've selected the same, we kept with our Smartgov, and we're using the Bluebeam interface with our Smartgov.
And I'll throw it out there in Boynton Beach. The software that John was referring to is Sagis Gov. So if anybody is looking, we've had good experience with them. And I know Smartgov has worked very well in the city of Sunny Isles Beach for many years now.
Many years, yes.
Great, thank you, Clay. All right, next question. So I'm gonna actually skip over this question. It's a little bit redundant. What has your city, county done to adapt to these challenges? We'll go to question number 3. Has your city or county implemented any practices that have decreased the time it takes to issue permits? I will start with Lewis.
Right. So here in the city, we also have an operating system that ours is Acela, and we went digital about March of this year. I'm sorry, March of last year. And in October, we went full digital. We leave the ability for our permit clerks to intake paper documents as well. We don't want to leave the smaller mom and pop shops out of the equation, but we do have the ability to go full digital, and we have Acela that interfaces with ePlan Hub, which is where the neighbors, we call them, would input all of their documentation. We have increased the size of our building department staffing. When I started here about 6 years ago, I think we had 170. Now we're at over 240 that we have in staffing. We have a separate building that we house staff for the existing buildings. As what Clay was referring to, we see the writing on the wall, if you will. So we know that we're going to have a lot more involved with the documentation and the tracking of these buildings as they get older. We do have the Board of Rules and Appeals that also provides us some of that information. And we have inspectors that go by and get the documentation that's provided to us by those engineers and professionals that are doing the recertification of those buildings. We also have, when we have larger projects, we have, for example, a $700 million job at the convention center. We created a remote office for our inspectors and our plans reviewers to be nearer to the contractors so that we can turn around plan reviews quicker. And the staff that we have there are duly licensed to do plan reviews and inspections. So efficiently wise, those individuals can do both the inspections that are being called for and the plan reviews on those larger job sites. That is one of our general permits. We do have private providers that we also deal with here, and I'm the administrator for the private provider projects. We have projects, for example, that are going up to close to $300 million. So we have the ability to reduce the amount of our energies on projects that we can also involve private providers with. They do the plan reviews and the inspections for the building, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing portions of those jobs. So it frees up our hands so we can do other things. And that also increases our efficiency to getting our permitting done, which this year we did about 31,000 permits the end of this fiscal year. And the year before that, yeah, COVID has impacted us. We did 26,000, I believe, during the COVID issues. And we didn't close our building. We had our operations, but at limited, I want to say, occupant load in the building. We did have a portable office outside in the parking area where we would take your number, if you will, we'd give it to you, and we'd take your plans, we'd sanitize your plans, and you'd sit in your car in your air-conditioned vehicle until we called you and let you know that you can come into the building. But we never closed our operations, and we kept going. And that helped us because we didn't have the backlog when things started to free up. We followed the CDC guidelines, and we also have third parties that we have contracted to help us out with staffing if we do ever have a shortcoming because of either the illnesses or vacations and what have you. So we have a tiered system where we have 3 different outside entities that we can go to if we need external staffing as well.
Great. Thank you, Louis. Brian.
Well, I'm not going to talk as much about staffing. A couple of I would say bigger changes we've made in the last 2 to 3 years involved really taking a hard look at processing on the part of our permit techs, and then plan review by our reviewers inside and outside our department. I'll start with our permit techs. So in late 2018, we started discussing and really evaluating the time that we were taking processing very routine single trade residential permits, roofs, windows and doors, mechanical, electrical, things that did not require usually planned review. For windows, doors, and roofs, perhaps product approval information. And so worked through really a finite set of permit types and subtypes that we were able to free up our plan reviewers from, and allow our permit techs really to confirm the information on intake. And the result for probably close to 24 different permit types was an announcement for express permitting. And our customers don't actually elect for an express permit. This isn't like a pay for additional service. It was simply for these specific permit types and subtypes, exclusively residential. We commit and I'll say promise, although we were not 100% perfect, to process those applications in 30 minutes or less. And you can imagine the response that got from our permit techs in the beginning, although they were very engaged as we worked through that. They were skeptical, as one would expect, but they absolutely knocked it out of the park. And so windows and doors and roofs, non-metal roofs, again, water heater changeouts, air conditioner changeouts, things like that, they were able to process those things, residential demolition permits, that they're in, they're out, they're waiting for them when they come in the morning, if they were applied online, and they're out the door, which is a sizable chunk of our permit volume. And so freed up our reviewers and our inspectors to focus on those more complicated projects that require fuller plan review and much more time and their expertise. And then so on that front with reviewers, around the same timeline, maybe earlier, mid-19, we started looking at our plan review experience, not just within the building inspection division. All of my colleagues on the line, I'm sure, have others who review their permit applications, whether that be the water utility or their fire marshal or fire inspector's office, public works, where we're dealing with interaction with the public rights of way. So our department, probably like many others on the call, act as sort of the gatekeeper for a lot of those permits, even though we don't perform every single review on them. We took a really hard look at years worth of review experience, turnaround, not necessarily approval, but how quickly were we processing, completing our reviews, and saw that within our own department, within our own building division, we were doing that across the board in the 3 to 5 day range, even though we had programmed our system to assign a 10 calendar day due date. So we were exceeding that expectation pretty consistently. Outside of our department, not quite as well, but seeing that experience was where it was, we chose to reduce that 10-day deadline to 7 days. And so that's across all of our commercial and residential reviews and across all of our departments that review building permit plans, is that they get a 7-day deadline. Now, that doesn't, again, mean that we meet that deadline or that expectation 100% of the time, but it means that we were, much like with express permitting, increasing our commitment to the customer that we're going to turn these things around. We're going to make them a priority. And the comfort, I think, that our plan reviewers took from it, although they didn't embrace a reduced turnaround deadline any more than our permit techs embraced express permitting, was that the proof that they were already doing it. Now, you know, COVID and some of the boom that we've seen since then has, again, challenged us further. Like Lewis said, we've had to bring on additional staff. We've had to bring in contract plans reviewers and inspectors on occasion to handle particularly high volume periods or staff shortage. But those are two areas that I think our staff is particularly proud of, that they've gone the extra mile in meeting or exceeding the customer's expectations.
Thank you, Brian. I was taking notes on the express permit for some of the residential permits. I like that idea. It's very responsive and immediate for our residents, which is what they're increasingly looking for from us. So I think that's really great. John, how about in Boynton Beach?
What we have started doing because of the staffing woes that everybody has experienced, we have implemented an instant permit for only residential residences for air conditioning changeouts and water heater changeouts. What the customer will do is when they apply for a permit online, they will upload the documents and pay the fees. They will provide us all the documentation that's required for a typical changeout review. Once they pay the fees and upload the documents, the permit will be issued to them immediately. Then what we will do is, when they are ready for an inspection, we are able to do this one of two ways for an inspection. We are going to be accepting color pictures and affidavits that we will provide the affidavit form. They will fill that out. There are requirements for the affidavit, and they will submit that affidavit with the color pictures, and those pictures need to be clear and show the nameplates of the condensing unit, the air handler, the breaker size, the tie downs, things like that, that are required for an inspection. They can also opt to have a video inspection where we will do a FaceTime with their installer or whoever from the company that's going to be on site, and they will walk through the inspection, and the inspector in the office will ask them to point the camera so they can see 80 items that they need to see. So in doing that, it's going to reduce plan review. It's going to reduce the the in-person inspection, and it'll make it a little more efficient, and hopefully that will cut down some of our costs from our contractor that does most of those inspections.
Thank you, John. Yeah, the virtual inspections are definitely an important part of the future, I believe, in permitting. Tom, do you want to speak to a little bit about what you all are doing with virtual inspections in Lake County?
Sure. We actually, in March of 2020, when COVID basically hit and everybody went to trying to figure out how we were going to deal with this, we instituted virtual inspections on any occupied residence. All of my inspectors have Google Duo on their mobile devices so that they can interface with an Apple or an Android phone. And we didn't want to endanger the residents. We didn't want to endanger our inspection staff. So they have actually been using that quite well for occupied residents, which is mostly maintenance inspections of things within the house, water heater changeouts, HVAC changeouts, things where we just didn't want to interface directly with the public on. We are planning on moving into more of that for additional maintenance style inspections, small projects, re-inspections. There's going to be a lot of applications for that. We're just still working out all the parameters for that. But it is definitely one of the future items for us to move forward with.
And Lewis, you mentioned a little bit about the virtual inspections with the city of Fort Lauderdale. I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add.
No, we also pretty much, I'd be exactly saying the same things that you've already heard. We do maintenance type things here. It's change outs for water heaters or ACs, but no new construction or anything that's a new appliance or anything like that. We still have inspections for those. We do have the Board of Rules and Appeals here that has given us a guideline in our amended Chapter 1 that lets us know what is allowed to be virtually inspected. And pretty much it's very limited. But I agree with everybody else that, yeah, this is something that we're going to have to look at closer and probably expand on our list of limited items to be inspected virtually.
Great, thank you. All right, next question. How have you addressed workforce attrition and replacing retirees? We can start with Brian from Lakeland.
You're shaking up the order on us, Catherine.
To keep it fresh.
Yeah, well, for several years now, we have been, I think, evaluating and reacting to attrition and an aging industry. So in order to, and it took a number of years working with our human resources folks and our city manager's office and city commission to just about a year ago now, finally landed on a completely restructured sort of classification methodology for our plans reviewers and inspectors, where they were actually reclassified into combined plans examiner and inspector classifications. And then we introduced or expanded the number of classes of those inspector plans examiner positions based on their credentials and sort of their versatility and so value to the community, which created a real progression model for them to promote into higher classifications without the need to apply and compete for those higher classifications, and was met with a real round of applause from those inspectors and plans reviewers. It's ones, twos, threes, and fours, but we got approval to really have all threes and fours on our org chart with employees underfilling those positions if they did not have the credentials to be a 3 or a 4. But that again, that created the ability to not have to recruit when someone meets the requirements to be promoted into one of those higher classifications. The combination, again, was on that versatility side and making sure that those who could review plans were qualified to review plans, were asked to and expected to review plans, whereas before they may have only had an inspector title position, and it put us in a position on occasion where someone might balk at being asked to review plans, even though they had the state credential to legally review the plans. So trying to find that balance in compensating and rewarding employees for professional growth and making themselves more valuable to our organization and our department and our community, which only serves all of us better. Beyond that, probably a lot of the same things you'd hear from others on the call is, we've had to hire contract labor. We've had to commit to hiring contract labor for much longer periods of time because those providers, are so in demand that they weren't able to give us someone for a month or 2 months. We had to commit to 3 months or more of that service in order to bring it to Lakeland. We also increased our fleet of contracted labor permit techs, and I'm a big permit tech proponent guy who thinks the world of our permit techs. They take a lot of grief and don't have maybe the technical professional credentials that all of our inspectors and plans reviewers have, but they are the grease that makes this run, the business run. And so we've made sure to reward and compensate and recognize them, and to make sure that they have the resources they need to continue to deliver that top-notch service day in and day out to, as one of our other callers said, literally thousands and thousands of customers every year.
Thank you, Brian. Absolutely. A question came in the chat about has anyone implemented an internship apprenticeship type program? John, do you want to talk a little bit about what you've done in Boynton Beach relating to an apprenticeship?
As far as the apprenticeship, we do have a program approved by the state of Florida. We have not put anybody through the program yet. The way we are handling our staffing is we are hiring contractors, building contractors, plumbing contractors, and getting them their provisional licenses, and then putting them through an extensive training program where we will have one of the licensed professionals that we have on staff train them for 3 months. And that's all he does is they will go out, they will do the inspections, and our program also includes some after-hours study with the study guides that we provide them from ICC. So they are comfortable not only doing the inspections, but they will also be able to take that test and pass it on the first time. It's a difficult test, and as you all know, but those are the kind of things that we have got to start, that we are doing, because those licensed professionals are not out there, and when they do become available, they are picked up by the contractual companies out there that are willing to pay them more. So those are the kind. That's what we're doing. Like I said, we have the program in place, but we haven't implemented it yet. I do have a candidate though.
Thank you, John. Louis, in the city of Fort Lauderdale, what are you all doing to attract talent and kind of mitigate some of the attrition that's going on in the field?
We pay really well. No, we do have the ability to hire as trainees, individuals that might already have like for example, a general contractor's license that don't yet have the building inspectors or any planned examiners licensures. We look also to hire from within as far as promoting. But if we need to expand on our positions and add more people, then we also post outside of our city website. So we have also before that, prior to me coming in 2016 to the city of Fort Lauderdale, they had a recruitment and retention where they would give somewhere between a 1.8% up to like almost 3% increase for those individuals that were already on board. And that lasted, I want to say, till about 2017 and a half. And we actually had a study that was done for your positions, and that also when it was implemented with the new percentages that people would be getting, they added what we had already with our retention, and that increased morale dramatically because a lot of people thought that they were underpaid and they stayed on. That, like again, I said, it was like maybe 2017. And we had, since that class and compensation study that was done, we have, I think we're at like 75% of the average pay for the same positions elsewhere. So that helps us keep the ones that we have. And we also, like I said, have the ability to train as well. And we'll let a new person that doesn't quite have the licensures that we need them to get to ride with our seasoned inspectors or to shadow our plan reviewers if they're wishing to do so. We might start them off with enforcement just so that they can get their feet wet in what we do here in the building department. But we also have the Board of Rules and Appeals that has, there is a program, 200 hours to get your 1 and 2 family dwelling inspectors that you have to ride with each one of the, if you already licensed as an inspector and you wanted to have a 1 and 2 family dwelling certification, we can allow you to do that through BORA to get certified in that as well. They have their own recruitment type things that they do to get people licensed, because like you mentioned, that there is a shortage in people that have the kind of background that we need to do the type of jobs that we need to fill boots for. It's getting more difficult, as everybody I'm sure will agree, to find those qualified recruiters or trainees.
Thank you, Louis. Tom, what about in Lake County?
Oh boy, we got lots of stuff going on in Lake County. We do have 8 internship programs approved, and plans examiner and inspector in all 4 trades. We currently have 2 people in the internship program, one for building plans and one for mechanical inspector. I have 2 positions in our budget that we're getting ready to advertise for 2 incoming intern positions that will basically be someone that's non-licensed to run them through the program. We have an incentive program for our inspectors where they get an incentive pay bump for for each 2 additional licenses they get, up to 8. We reclassed our permit techs. Always want to recognize our permit techs. We reclassed those into, we have to stay with the same number of permit techs, but we now have a permit tech 1, 2, 3 career path that is going to allow, with adding experience and certification, they can move up all the way up to the permit tech 3 level, which I would love to have a full group of permit tech 3s. We've also been interacting quite a bit with our local technical college and our high school construction programs to start trying to recruit younger people in to let them know if they're going in the construction industry, this is an alternative career path for you in the construction industry. We also are members of the I Build Central Florida group, which is industry contractors, suppliers that are promoting the career in construction. So you really got to reach out any resource you can. Once we can go back to that, we have in the past gone and spoken to classes in the construction college as well as high school about careers in code enforcement in the building inspection industry. So we're doing everything we can to try and figure out how to bring people in and how to retain the great people we have already.
Tom, you mentioned the 8 internships at the beginning. Are those paid or unpaid?
They're paid.
Okay. So it's usually like college students or recent graduates, I would imagine.
Well, the internship program, the way the state of Florida's set up is you can have a 4-year internship program that you can shorten all the way to 1 year depending on the person's experience. If they have 4 years of construction experience, you can shorten the internship to 1 year to train them on how to be an inspector, how to be a plans examiner in that specific trade. We're also utilizing it to train across to another trade. That's what I currently have going on, is people learning new trades through an internship program because of not having the experience in that trade previously.
Great, thank you. And there's a question in the chat. Does anyone have a path for permit techs to transition to inspectors and reviewers? Does any of the panelists have input on that? It's a great question.
Well, this is Louis. I can tell you that we have an intake person, permit tech, if you will, this was before ICC, before permit tech was actually something that we wanted to push. But like Tom said, we also have, we increased their pay, if you will, their benefits if they have the ICC licensure as a permit tech. But we do have, at least I can think of one individual that was a permit tech that we give the ability to get. This individual had a CFM licensure because they wanted to take an opposition opened up here in our flood team. And she took up the that little plus, if you will, that we said, if you are interested, we'd let you take the exams, we'd pay for your books and give you some courses. And this person did. And she's now a floodplains specialist, making probably twice what a permit tech would have made. So we do have that here as well. And by the way, if you do have inspectors that are roaming the fields out there, you might as well, if they hear about any of the contractors that are working on job sites, they might only have a journeyman's licensure. Those are the ones that you would like to have recruited. Those are the ones that would be on an easier path to get the actual inspector's licenses. I don't know if Tom would agree with that, but we do tell our inspectors that if they hear somebody out there that's got a journeyman's license that are possibly a good candidate, a good fit, because you just don't want anybody in the construction field to join your team. You want to make sure that you get the right people, so that if they do know of anybody that's in that position that could benefit from what we would offer here. And like I said, we do offer the training, so you can come in as a trainee, not getting quite the pay until you get your BN or your PX license. But we welcome that kind of thing.
Thank you. All right, next question. What trends do you see in the future regarding building permitting, and how can building departments start preparing now? Tom, what do you have going on in Lake County, and what do you see in the future?
Well, actually, the staffing is really one of our biggest issues.
Yep.
As we just went through, the internship program is one thing. And as I was saying before, the creating relationships with your local colleges, most of them have a building construction program. That's somebody that's walking out with 2 or 3 years experience, basically. So those are good, really good candidates. It's hard to steal somebody that's going to become an architect or an engineer, but you can get somebody that has those degrees as well, are great for doing plan review and doing field inspections. One of the other problems we have, and we've kind of edged around it a little, is what the building departments do really doesn't fit into the exact same box as most of the other positions within a municipality. And there really needs to be recognized to have a little more flexibility with that. Construction workload goes up and down so much that it's kind of problematic for you to have to figure 8 to 10 months in advance to put a position in the budget for next year when you need the person next week. That's one of those things that would greatly assist the departments, because not everyone is in an enterprise fund, but the ones that are, their cash flow goes up with the increase in the number of permits. So the funding isn't usually a problem. It's getting the approval to add positions as the workflow requires it.
Thank you. Clay, what trends do you see in the future? I think you're muted.
There. Can everyone hear me now? It's going to be a big impact in the future. For right now, it's really hard to recruit. I think every jurisdiction is having difficulty recruiting qualified people, and the way we recruit, we recruit by trying to find licensed certified contractors, journeymen, preferably with their master's license. But I see in the future, we're going to all have a big impact on this. And we have to find, like the state has already gone and started the internship program a couple of years ago. We're going to have to continue to open up opportunity to the younger force of people. I mean, I started in this business as a general contractor at the age of 40. I came in out of the range, to speak of, and that's what Lewis said. We tell our inspectors out in the field, look for, if you see anyone that's a general contractor, architect, engineer, journeyman, master certification, encourage them to look for a new career. And actually, another catalyst that brought in our problems for all jurisdictions is private providers. The private industry is they're not only paying more, but they're giving more benefits. They're giving them drive home cars. They have a bigger workload, but in the time of when it comes to community service, we feel that it's better to have in-house employment to give a better community service. It's always better. So what we're doing some studies right now to look at pay scales, and we're going to have to do that. I think we all have to look at increasing the size of our departments because of code changes and requirements for, I really feel that this collapse at Surfside is going to change it's going to change the requirements for every building department to add additional help, not only inspectors, but clerical help also, to help properly maintain and these buildings and their property maintenance. Right now in Dayton-Broward County is the only one that has a 40-year recertification, and they're looking at reducing that to considerably. I'm not going to mention any years, but they're talking about reducing it and adding more process to that. But if the whole state of Florida goes into that, you're going to have a big shortage of inspectors, engineers, architects. So we have to do a lot to look into preparing for that. Start meeting with our property. I come from a small community. We're a 2-mile long community, but we're high-end commercial residential, high rise. Some of our buildings are 750 foot high. We have high-end, residential, and we have to provide that service for building those. We do not have any, as of yet, we haven't had one private provider in any of our buildings. We've all done that in-house with inspections. So we might have to look at that. We're all, we all have to look at our budgets and look at our organizations and make the adjustments.
Thank you, Clay. That's a great prelude to, I believe it's the next month's webinar on recruitment and retention of employees in specialized fields like the building department, like IT. So stay tuned. Those emails should be going out from FCCMA for that webinar. And I'm going to ask one last question from the chat before I wrap it up, because we're about out of time. The question is, how often do jurisdictions adjust their building permit fees? And what challenges do you experience when the fees are evaluated for adjustment or increase? Is there anyone on the panel that would like to speak to that? Tom?
Yeah, we actually look at our fee schedule every year, and we do tweaks to it based on what we see going through. They're usually minor tweaks, but I figure doing a minor tweak every year is much better than doing a huge tweak every 10 years. So I see it as something that you need to constantly be watching your budget, your expenses, your revenue coming in, and be adjusting it based on the workload coming and what services you're providing, because that changes too. We last year put in a 5% discount for residential permits for digital, if you do it all digital, to kind of give them the carrot instead of the stick to move them towards digital permitting. And I see it as doing a small change every year. Involve your local contractors and home builders, and it's much easier to keep where your fees are at the right level for the operation you're doing.
Great. Thank you so much, Tom. And thank you to all the panelists. This was a great discussion. I really appreciate everyone's time and participating and asking great questions. And with that, I will turn it back over to Bob Lee.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you, especially Catherine, for your preparation today and working with these panelists and identifying questions for them. Very, very insightful, informative. The time that each of these panelists with their vast experiences given is certainly, on behalf of FCCMA, very much appreciated. So also like the formal discussion that you had, I think that worked well for a discussion like this when we only have an hour and it's such an important topic to just sort of extemporaneously allow each of you to identify what you feel are most important in terms of addressing these questions. Also want to acknowledge the attendees because I did note from the chat box that some of them were actually responding to questions that others raised and giving some information, sharing information that they had as a follow-up to some of these questions. So we really appreciate you doing that and assisting some of the other attendees. Finally, just let me say thank you again, as we do each webinar, to the FCCMA Board of Directors for continuing this type of training format for attendees. As you all know, it's at no cost, and FCCMA has made a commitment to continue to provide virtual type training. So really appreciate that. With that said, those final comments, Thank you all again for your participation. And I guess we're now adjourned. Take care.